Because we're taking the equation test today, the next unit is on exponents. So in your notebook, I want you to start kind of a fresh spot in your notebook and put exponents. Okay, and I think today this should be review for most of you. I just want you to remember how to figure out exponents using your calculator. So it should be pretty quick. Okay, so when we're looking at exponents, we're looking at b to the n, okay, and that means b multiplied by itself n times. Okay, so we're looking at problems like this: 5 to the third power, or 7 to the second power, or 2 to the ninth power. That's the kind of problems we're looking at when we're talking about exponents. Okay, now the b is called the base. So if you were going to write something in your notes, you could put b to a power of n. The b is the base and the n is the exponent. Okay, the n is that little number up in the corner. Okay, do you remember seeing things like this? Have you done exponents before? I think so. Okay, hopefully pretty simple. Okay, so when we first learned multiplication, we talked about repeated addition. When we're talking about exponents, we're going to talk about repeated multiplication. Okay, so when you see 4 to the third power, you could put this example in your notes. 4 to the third power really means 4 times 4 times 4. Okay, and you could grab your calculator. I don't expect you to do this in your head. This is why we have a calculator. And you could type into your calculator 4 times 4 times 4. And it would give you 64. Okay, pretty simple. 1 to the fifth power. Okay, that literally means 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, which is, what would that be? Anybody? Yeah, some of you are holding up 1, right? 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. It doesn't matter how many times you multiply by 1, the answer is still 1. If I said 1 to the 100th power, it'd still be 1. Okay? How about 3 to the second power? What is 3 to the second power? Anybody willing to unmute themselves this morning?
9.
9, yeah. 3 to the second power really means 3 times 3, which is 9. Okay? Now, if I gave you a problem like 5 to the fourth power, okay, we maybe don't know that in our head. I don't know that in my head. Okay, but I can figure it out. 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. Okay, and I could type in 5 times itself 4 times in my calculator, and you get 625. Okay, now I don't like to have to type a number repeated times in my calculator. Anybody take a guess why I don't like to have to do that? How many of you lose track of things when you're typing things in? Like, oops, put that too many times and now I have to start over, or I missed one. Okay, so I want you to know how to use your calculator to do this. Okay, so can everybody see my screen right now? If you're on Zoom, look at my screen. I have 4 different calculators sitting there, and hopefully yours looks like one of them. Okay, or similar. Some of you have a graphing calculator, but it's similar to one of these, okay? So I'm going to tell you how to use your calculator if you didn't know how, Okay? If I want to figure out 5 to the 4th power using my calculator, which we already know is 625. Okay, if you have a calculator like this one, the first one here, okay, there is a button. I'm going to try to circle it so you guys can see it right here. Everybody see that? Okay, it's called a caret key. It's like a little arrow up. And that button literally tells whatever numbers after it to go up and be an exponent. So the way you would type this in your calculator is 5, and then you would hit that caret key, and then a 4, and hit equals. Okay, that's if you have that calculator. That's how you would do it. Okay, if you have the next calculator, there is a button right here above the division sign that says y to the x power. Okay, so if you have that calculator, you're going to use it like this. You're going to hit 5, and then you're going to hit that button, y to the x power, and then 4, and hit equals. Let me fix that. That's supposed to be an equal sign. Okay. Some of you have the next calculator, and that one works very much like the first one. So you can see that arrow up button again, so you enter everything the same way you would have on the first calculator that I showed you. And then some of you have a Casio calculator. That one looks just a little bit different. There's a button right here. So you would enter 5 and then hit that button, X with the little square, and then hit 4 and hit equals. Okay? And so if you do 5 to the 4th power, you get 625. You should get 625 anyways. That makes sense to everybody? Okay. Now, I expect that you'll use your calculators on this stuff. I don't expect you to do this in your head. Okay, why would we? If we have the technology to do it for us, let's use that. Okay, so if we try a few of these, 2 to the 5th power, number 1 here, 2 to the 5th power, you can use your calculator. What do you get? Okay,
32.
32 is correct. Lots of you are typing it in the chat. You should get 32. Okay. The next one, 5 to the 3rd power. Again, use your calculator. There's no reason not to. So 5, hit the button to the 3rd power. And lots of you are typing that in. You get 125. Okay, 10 to the 3rd power. 10 to the 3rd power is actually really easy to do in your head. Okay, because anytime you have a base of 10 with a power, it's a 1 with 3 zeros. Okay, so you should have had 1,000 there. How about 12 to the 1st power? What's that? I really hope you don't need a calculator for 12 to the 1st power.
12.
12, right? It's just 12. Okay, 10 to the 5th power. Now, we can use our calculator, 10 to the 5th power, or you can just do this in your head. It's a 1 with how many zeros?
5.
5, because the exponent is 5. So 1 with, that's 4, 5 zeros, so 100,000. Okay, now the last one here, 10 to the 13th power. I don't know that that's going to fit on your calculator. It doesn't. It tells you what's called scientific notation. We'll learn about that next week. But you don't need a calculator to do 10 to the 13th power. It's a 1 with 13 zeros. And then please go back and put your commas in so I can actually read the number. So it's hundreds, thousands, millions, billions, 10 trillion. 10 to the 13th power is 10 trillion. Okay? So on the side here, a couple little points. Any number to the 0 power is 1. Okay? If I gave you a number like 7 to the 0 power, and you put that into your calculator, 7 to the 0 power, it's 1. It does not matter what number it is to the 0 power, it's always 1, no matter what. I could do 596,000 to the 0 power, the answer is 1. Okay? We'll talk about that more later on next week. Any number to the 1st power is itself, right? If I put 15 to the 1st power, it's just 15. 92 to the 1st power is 92, that type of thing. And powers of 10 will only contain 1s and 0. So 10 to the 5th power is a 1 with 5 zeros. 10 to the 7th power would be a 1 with 7 zeros. Okay, questions there? Okay, now, the one thing to be really careful with is negatives. Okay, this is a little bit hard to read, but the base is only what is directly in front of the power. In order for a negative symbol to be included in the base, it must be grouped with the parentheses. So if you look at the two examples here, the first one says negative 2 to the 4th power. Well, what that really means is if we follow order of operations, it's 2 to the 4th power and then put a negative sign in front of it. Okay, where this looks a little bit different. Because the negative 2 is in parentheses, it's negative 2 4 times. Okay, so for example, if I said negative 3 to the 2nd power or negative 3 to the 2nd power. These are two different problems. Okay? The first one means negative 3 times 3. Because we're just doing that 3 2 times. So 3 times 3 is 9. Put a negative sign in front of it. Okay? The second one, because it's in parentheses, negative 3 times negative 3, which is positive 9. Okay, so be really careful with negative signs. Does that make sense to everyone? Are you following that? Okay, so let's just try a couple of problems here. I want you to type your answer in the chat. I'm going to have you do just the first 3 problems. So come up with the answer to the first 3 problems. Okay, and I think most of you are getting these right. It's pretty easy when you can use your calculator. right? 11 to the second power really means 11 times 11, which is 121. 5 to the first power is just 5. And 6 to the third power, you should have had 216. Okay, how about this one? Let's try these three. Just do the first one. What is negative 4 to the second power? Enter that answer in the chat. Negative 4 to the second power. Be really careful with parentheses. So I'm seeing two answers here. I'm seeing either 16 or negative 16. And in this case, it is positive 16. Okay? Remember, when you do negative 4, when it's in parentheses, that really means negative 4 times negative 4, which ends up being positive because two negatives make a positive. Okay? The second one, when it's not in the parentheses, then your answer is what? When it's just negative 4 to the second power and no parentheses there, then it is negative 16. Okay, because that means do 4 times 4 and put a negative sign in front of it. Okay, is the last one going to be negative or positive? What do you think? Negative or positive? And lots of you are correct. It's going to be a positive answer. Okay, it's going to be positive because you have negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. 2 negatives make a positive. 2 more negatives make a positive. So my answer has to be positive, and it's positive 81. Okay, questions there? Okay, the last type of thing you're going to see on your homework that you'll have to do for exponents is something like this, where it's just evaluated. Okay, if it's y to the third power and y equals 4, you're doing 4 to the third power. And you can use your calculator. 4 to the third power is 64. Okay? If we're doing x to the second power, x being negative 3, now you have to put the negative 3 in parentheses because you want the negative sign to stay with it. Okay, so we're doing negative 3 times negative 3, which is positive 9. Okay? And then the last one, we have to follow order of operations. So we would have 10 times w, which is negative 2, to the third power. Now you can't do 10 times negative 2 first, right? Order of operations, PEMDAS, says we have to do exponents before we can multiply. So we have to do the negative 2 to the third power. 2 to the third power is 8. But then it's negative, right? This piece right here is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. So this equals negative 8. And then negative 8 times 10 is negative 80. So be really careful with negative signs. Questions on that piece?